important. And from writing to the page, we now come to a presenting organization. And we have with us the producers, Laura Asward and Daisy Peele, and also the actors, April Matthis and Tom O'Keefe, who will read to us and perform for us work they created from the play Help by Claudia Rankine. And she also is with us, which is a very big honor to have you with us, Claudia. But all of you, first of all, welcome. And maybe Laura or Daisy to tell us a little bit about the project. But first of all, welcome everybody.
Thank you, Frank. Hi, everybody. My name is Laura Aswad. I am the producer for The Shed. The Shed is a new art center located in New York City that opened in April of 2019. At The Shed, we work with artists and other thinkers to produce and welcome art and ideas across all forms of creativity. We do this because we believe in the transformative power of artistic invention to build a shared understanding of our rapidly changing world and to work towards a more equitable society. I will say on behalf of The Shed, we stand in solidarity with Ukraine and especially with the survivors of and those who are mourning loved ones lost in the bombing of the Donetsk Drama Theatre in Mariupol. Today we are honored to share space with other New York theater organizations and institutions to raise our voice against this injustice and tragedy. We at The Shed stand against any act of hatred and do not tolerate discrimination or harassment in any form. And Frank, I'm going to welcome Daisy Peele, our associate producer, to tell you more about our production of Help and the program that we're presenting to you today. So thank you very much for having us with you today.
Thank you.
Over to Daisy.
Thank you, Laura. And thank you to our colleagues who are gathered for this marathon. As Laura mentioned, our hearts are with Mariupol and with the victims, with all victims of war and senseless violence. It is my honor to introduce playwright Claudia Rankine and her play Help, a work that at its crux explores notions of humanity and who are deemed valuable. We first commissioned Help in 2018 with the production landing in 2020 that closed during previews due to the pandemic. But we've remained committed to continue its development, processing the events of the past 2 years in order to maintain the urgency of the play's message in the confluence of the ongoing crisis of the pandemic, of white dominance, anti-Blackness, and political life in the US. Much of which is still relevant across the globe and within the bounds of this war. Help is a call to grapple with a corrosive ideology that has shaped American society from its inception. It's an appeal not to turn away from deep reflection, conversation, and anti-racist action. Help was presented this spring and actually recently closed on April 10th. And as you guys know, today we will be joined by April Matthis, who played the lead role of the narrator, and Tom O'Keefe, who played her husband and was a member of the ensemble, along with Claudia to share an excerpt of the work. Before I formally read bios and introduce our artist, I just wanted to take a moment to share an excerpt of Claudia's book, Citizen in American Lyric. I, they, he, she, we, you turn, only to discover the encounter, to be alien to this place. Wait. The patience is in the living. Time opens out to you. The opening between you and you, occupied, zoned for an encounter. Given the histories of you, and always, who is this you? The start of you, each day, a presence already. Hey, you. Thank you. April Matthis is an Obie-winning performer, best known for her presence in the New York downtown theater world, and is a member of the groundbreaking experimental theater collective called Elevator Repair Service. Matthis has performed new plays at the Roundabout, Playwrights Horizon, the Public Theater, the Signature Theater, New York Theater Workshop, and Soho Rep. She has appeared in guest starring roles on New Amsterdam, The Blacklist, The Good Fight, and Evil, and her feature film debut, Fugitive Dreams, recently screened at the Tallinn Black Nights Film Festival and Cinequest. Tom O'Keefe is a New York-based husband, dad, and actor. He was part of the pre-pandemic production of Help in 2020 and was so very happy to be back in 2022. His most recently television work includes FBI, Most Wanted, The Blacklist, and HBO's upcoming miniseries, White House Plumbers. He's a proud member of the Actors Equity Association and SAG-AFTRA. As one of our leading poets and thinkers, Claudia Rankine is celebrated for her writings on how we live as a society, in particular for her attention to how whiteness operates in our lives and institutions. In 2016, Rankine co-founded the Racial Imaginary Institute and co-edited several anthologies, including The Racial Imaginary, Writers on Race and the Life of the Mind. Rankine is the author of 5 books of poetry, including Citizen, an American Lyric, and 4 plays, including Help and The White Card. Her recent collection of essays, Just Us, An American Conversation, was published by Grey Wolf Press in 2020. Among her numerous awards and honors, Rankine is the recipient of the Bobbitt National Prize of Poetry, the Poets and Writers Jackson Poetry Prize, and fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, the Lannan Foundation, MacArthur Foundation, United States Artists, and the National Endowment of the Arts. I'd like to warmly welcome Claudia Rankine.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say there's only one reason I'm here right now, and it's because of the devastation that's happening in the Ukraine. I stand in solidarity with the Ukraine. I stand against those who stand against the Ukraine. So I just want that to be clear. Thank you, Daisy. In July of 2019, the New York Times published an essay I wrote entitled Brief Conversations with White Men. That was the print version, and online it was, I wanted to know what white men thought about their privilege, so I asked. The piece received 2,197 comments. I also received over 200 email correspondences from people I didn't know. Surprisingly, I was suddenly in conversation with hundreds of white men and a number of Black women. Though I wasn't able to respond to each person individually, Help became a way to use theater to continue the conversation. Help is a play in which the narrator, April, inhabits the category of the Black woman in order to be in dialogue with the structure of white supremacy. The title actually comes from Macbeth. There's a line in Macbeth that says, "There is a tyrant afoot. Now is the time of help." As the playwright, I was interested in exploring with various publics our power structure, comprised primarily of white men who ultimately determined all civic possibility. The text in this play was primarily culled from actual responses to the Times article, public statements by men and women in the government and public life, and interviews conducted with white men by civil rights activist and theologian Ruby Sales, or documentary filmmaker Whitney Dow, I did the interview myself. Help builds on the desire to create a shared reality, one in which there is agreement not in how to respond, but in what we are seeing. If it's raining, can we all agree it is raining? How we respond to the rain varies. But can we agree the rain is coming down? Can we live in relation to each other within a shared knowing? As theologian Ruby Sales has said, I want a theology that begins to deepen people's understanding about their capacity to live fully human lives and to touch the goodness inside of them, rather than call upon them, the part of themselves, that's not rational, relational. Because there's nothing wrong with being European American. That's not the problem. It's how you actualize that history and how you actualize that reality. Today, we will be hearing an excerpt from the play where the narrator is in conversation with her husband after her travels, sharing her most recent conversations with white men into the final scene, culminating the work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sometimes you seem to make up for all the rest. Sometimes you are as all the rest.
Sometimes I make up for all the rest. Sometimes I am all the rest. But what about love?
Love?
What about that word? It's not an N-word.
It's full of N-words. Natural, naughty, naive.
Nuptial, nearly, nearby, necessary.
Needy, negative, negligent,
Nebulous,
needless,
neutral, nibbler,
nice, niche,
night,
nocturnal, native, noose, nonstop. Which reminds me, I've been asking white men about their privilege.
Why do that?
To speak together differently is to live together differently. Who said that?
I don't know. Was it me?
I was curious about what they're feeling.
Then why not ask them what they're feeling?
How do you ask a stranger that?
You thought asking them about their whiteness would get them to tell you how they feel?
If they say yes, they have privilege, they say yes to reality. If they say no, then I know.
What is it you know?
If they deny their dominance and privilege, they say no to a reality with me in it.
What'd they say?
I said they don't have it. None, no privilege. You apparently have all of it.
You trying to seduce me? They're just defensive. It's white fragility.
Oh, come on. After 20 years together, that's all you have to say? White fragility, white defensiveness. I'm trying to have a conversation. Why won't you admit their refusal is a passive way to condone the continuance of white violence and white power?
What do you want from those guys? They don't matter.
They do matter. And what's wrong with asking for accountability?
It's not like they're him, right? I mean, there's a clear case for your indignation and rage. Real power, real consequences.
It's not just him. And I'm not the one with the armed rage. You're like all the woke white men who set their privilege outside themselves, as in, I'm powerless, even as you know better than to be ignorant or defensive about your privilege. Never mind that the capacity to set yourself outside the holding pattern of white male dominance is the privilege. There's no outrunning the kingdom, the power, and the glory.
Look, all I've done is live in a world that usually doesn't treat me too harshly. Am I to blame for the injustices faced by others and the rage held by some? I didn't design the system. I haven't manipulated it, and I haven't tried to take advantage of others. And you and I both know this shit is complex.
So whatever happens, just happens. All right, fine.
If you want me to join you in trying to change the world, don't treat me like I caused these problems. Right? If you blame me for being born white into a racist system, what do you think I'm going to do? Yeah, of course I'll feel defensive.
Yes, you'll be white.
Wow. I'm sorry, what? I'm trying to figure out how to handle power and lack of power, and I'm being told I'm white? I can't listen to this. I can't listen to this. I can't listen to this! I didn't really do that. Okay. All right. As your partner, your husband, all I want to do is be in a position of support. I've had to shift my self-interest towards our collective interest.
That's true in all relationships.
Well, yeah, but in our marriage, I've had to develop new improvisational skills. It's as if I'm in crisis preparedness mode around other white people. I don't want to do harm, and I don't want them to do harm.
Well, they're just people, sometimes doing harm, sometimes trying not to. I can take care of myself.
You can, but should you have to? You're not here alone. I feel as if it's my role as a white person to stop white people from going white, because unfortunately, there's a lot of violence that comes with us.
Just as long as you don't think of yourself as my white savior.
You must not know what love is if you can say that. You must not know what it is to want to put yourself in the way of the insult, in the way of the mindlessness, in the way of the violence. You got to give me some credit.
I don't have to put myself there. I am there. You forget I'm Black.
Sometimes I do forget that you're Black.
That's when I remember you're white. Our socialization is the thing to be negotiated. Every day I'm carrying the deaths of yesterday.
I know. You know. And they know. Maybe that's what's at the center of the fear. But if we're going to have a chance at a tomorrow, we have to understand love as our prerogative. We have to become a we. To stay in this life, one has to know how to shift the posture.
To feel. What does it mean to give ourselves another chance? Another chance to stay standing. Another chance to stay in this life. Another chance to have a life. Another chance to feel.
Someone who is not you moves you by moving your category out of the way of harm, incidental or otherwise. Holds you by holding your best interest as part of their best interest. The someone who is not you feels through others, has a feeling for others. The someone who is not you is incomplete without knowing you.
What history has taught me is that there's no swerving away from the supremacy of whiteness. What history has taught me is that the project of educating white people has failed. What history has taught me is that being Black is not the N word. Being Black is not the need. We are the now in now. We are the emergency in now. The now, it's now. Now is the emergency. The N word is now. We are the force in feel. We are the emergency in feel. We feel. We feel into the consciousness of our history without risk of losing ourselves. We feel into the full potential of a whole self, a whole being. We hold their names, the ones past and passing, and the ones to come. We feel in all that has been felt, the sorrow and the joy, the possibility and the need. We imagine a self beyond servitude and brutality. We imagine in the depth, vulnerability, in the infinity of exhaustion, into the resistance in feel, into the power, into the full force of feel. Feel.
What would it mean to walk toward the one I won't see, holding the disturbance of this reality and swerve into, not away from? If trust is my being and being is my privilege, the mobility in every move I make is a decision for or against our democracy in the construction of my whiteness. Here is the trust.
Can you trust while knowing you're not the only one? The trigger finger of empire wants to destroy being. The analysis of our murderer and of our murder is so we can see we are not murdered as we bring our full capacity to living, to being, to life. We are the now in the now.
We can't coast anymore. We can't remain in the holding pattern. We need to change our direction. Fasten yourselves to each other. In time no longer cuts it.
In time never cut it. We are in the emergency. This is not a test. The day is ours. Sunlight as sharp as knowing comes. In our rough air, in our inclement weather, through a mountain of clouds. In solidarity with all displaced, oppressed, and persecuted peoples seeking safety and justice around the world. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, April, Tom, so much, and Laura and Daisy for the introduction, and Claudia for also joining us. How do you all feel? A question to everyone. How do you feel as artists in this time of a war that's in a way so close to our living rooms, where we are welcomed by a TV screen that says hello, welcome, in our own room? On the other hand, it's so far away. Does it have an effect on you? Anyone?
Of course, it's heartbreaking, and I don't have a television, so I consume media differently. It's mostly through sound, and I have a 12-year-old going on 13 who's a news junkie and very concerned about the world, what it opens up for me as a parent is a larger conversation, as I said briefly in my statement, about Ukraine shows us that this is happening all the time in so many places that are not front of mind. And I think the way that American news cycles go, we're kind of concerned about what's right in front of us. And sometimes Ukraine isn't the headline, it's what's happening in Hollywood. And I think it speaks to what our immediate priorities are. And a lot of that is connected to comfort and capitalism and consumerism. And the world I want my son to be aware of takes into account the suffering that is happening in our own neighborhood, quite literally, and by extension in the world, and just not being inoculated to that, and that we never get used to these images or get used to the number of people that are displaced and killed, that we see each human life as a life that's worthy of joy and peace and safety. And the work is to be aware, and then also how do we move forward in a way that's caring and responsible and helpful.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else? Tom, how is it for you reading the text and somehow having a bit of the Ukraine situation in mind? Did you read it slightly differently? I mean, you did it so beautifully, by the way, really. Thank you. It was such a, in a way, close reading. It felt so close, but did it?
Well, it's, thank you. It's lovely text. Besides the husband scene, the rest of the text I didn't read in the play. So, besides my rehearsing it on my own, I'd listened to it many, many times. But, it resonates all the time. But I would say today it resonates stronger with this focus of how we all treat each other in the face of cruelty and injustice. And, a reminder to take in what other people are experiencing when it's so easy to ignore that which doesn't happen to us directly. So yeah, that text hits pretty deep anyway. I think it just hits in a slightly different today.
Yeah, it really is about human relations. And if we think that Russia's idea is, they are our brothers, we are one people, we are one country, even so already it's the biggest by size in the world, and then want to have more, they're shooting then their own brothers, they're killing their own family, if it's true what they claim. And that the reason is a question to both Laura and Daisy, producing somehow what we are now in the time of war, even so it's not at our doors, and there's always war going on in the world, and let's remind that, but this feels a bit more closer to us. But does this change your thinking of what to present?
I think that, speaking on behalf of the mission and the team at the Shed, I think we're always looking to present content that we feel is, deeply important to expose to the greater world. I think whether it aligns with one's own thinking or not, it's really important to bring to the stage and to the galleries, the work that is important to the artists who are creating it, and obviously to present it in as true a way as we can. And I think that we are always looking for ways to present work that perhaps makes people think and is uncomfortable. It's not necessarily just, we don't want to just present something that is going to be, an easy experience, that it's important to show all sides to, to the art and to what's going on in the world. Daisy.
Yeah, I agree with that statement, Laura. And I think most of our work has grappled with real life questions. There's been always a social impact to the work that we produce. And I think that's always kind of at the nexus of just the artistic excellence, but also having social impact and a real social inquiry. And so I think that with what is occurring in Ukraine and what's occurring around the world, and just continuing to try to be stewards for these conversations to happen. I think that this event is definitely something that we are taking into real account in terms of our future programming and how we respond and how we create space for what we can do in our communities, right? The power really lies in what can be done with those that are around you immediately. And so even things of creating space for conversations to happen, or there's so many different levels to how we can engage and interact and work together to try to have conversations, to try to figure things out, to try to work towards a better tomorrow. And so it's something that has definitely stayed with us and will continue to stay with us. Yeah,
and you're making a great contribution. Even often if we think in our theaters, isolated, what difference do we really make? If you look at numbers, even today, the 24 organizations, but every day 100, 200 organizations present work in the city. So it is an impact. It does have an impact. And actually it's one we all do believe that is direct, like a fireplace and not an electric heater, something that really hits you. So thank you really, really all for joining April and Tom for that truly beautiful reading and for preparing for it. It really got under our skin, and Laura and Daisy for being with us. And to Claudia, please tell her that we really appreciated that she took personal time